Hello, welcome. Thank you for joining us for what is sure to be an inspiring and insightful conversation with three uh, pretty incredible artists. We are here to chat with the artists who are currently on display in the exhibition Persona at the Meek Art Center right now until February 22nd. We have with us Kurt Connell, Michelle Neilson, and Elizabeth Wood, and we will get to chat with them and see some of their pretty amazing work in just a moment. My name is Stephen Snyder. I am the Gallery and Communications Manager for the West Vancouver Community Arts Council, and we are so grateful to be able to work with the Meek Arts Center to present exhibitions in that fantastic space. Be sure to once you go see the artwork, because I hope after this you will go see the show, check out their programming. It's pretty amazing. So the Kamik is where we have this beautiful exhibition is on the unceded and traditional territories of the Squamish Nation. And the Arts Council, we recognize that it is truly a privilege to be able to be on these beautiful lands that our host nations have stewarded since time immemorial, so we can all experience all kinds of arts and culture, and it's pretty special to be able to be there. If you have any questions or comments throughout this conversation for artists, please drop those in the chat and we will get to that as we go. So it is time to meet our artists. They're all going to tell you a little bit about themselves. And I'm just going to go in alphabetical order. So Kurt, would you please tell us a bit about you? Oh, I think you're still muted.
Hello, Stephen, Michelle, and Elizabeth. I'm a North Shore artist that has been painting for many years. I started out in oil and eventually went to acrylics. And I consider myself a surrealist type of artist because I work with a form of automatism. And then I pull shapes and forms out of my scribbles on my sketch pads. And that's how my work usually arrives, from just spontaneous scribbles. Sometimes I do uh, think about images in uh, like visual metaphors and I play with it that way conceptually. And I'll mix it in with the automatism and I try to pull a piece together using both methods sometimes. And that's how basically I create my work.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing, Kurt. Michelle, could you tell us a bit about yourself?
You hear? Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, sorry, I have a button I have to push every time I speak. Yes, hi. Thanks. I'm Michelle Neilson, and I'm an artist, emerging artist based in Gibsons, BC. I guess my journey to art started many, many years ago, decades, in fact. I did my undergrad studies in the University of Alberta in fine arts. And I realized upon graduating that I just didn't have the DNA to get right into the gallery scene, and I didn't have the hustle that was required. And I just wanted to be a gypsy and travel the world, which I did. And it was great because it gave me a portfolio of life experiences and a gratitude for where I live. And came back to Canada and studied business, started a company, sold it, and 3 years ago. And I finally now, in my late 50s, have returned back to art. And I'm so happy to be back into art. And this stage right now is a bit choppy for me because years ago when I was studying art, I was really focused on sculpture. I mean, I did figurative drawing and I did dabbled in painting. I just didn't want to be sort of put in a box. And so I'm a free spirit right now, and I'm still trying to discover my voice and discover my medium. So I consider this period of my life right now still very highly exploratory. And on a whimsical level, I consider myself a 4-year-old in a sandbox. So every day I'm in there playing with sand. But lately it's been focused mostly on acrylic on wood. And my motivation in the last 2 years has been centered around the theme of artificial intelligence and what that is doing to us in humanity and how the algorithms of our world are dictating the news feeds that are feeding us information and portent of what happens if AI becomes conscious, and that chapter that opens up in that world, how will impact us as humans. So my left brain is busy, and my 4-year-old artist brain is very busy as well. Nice to meet you all.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Michelle. Elizabeth, could you tell us a bit about you?
Absolutely. So I'm Elizabeth Wood. In terms of my background, I do not have an arts background. My professional career was spent in software technology sector. However, I was always an arts enthusiast, and along the way, I took part-time courses when I could, attended galleries and museums as often as possible. And when I made a decision to retire a few years ago, I decided to focus on my own potential for artistic expression. And I must say, it's been a very engaging and interesting journey, and it continues to be today. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much for sharing, Elizabeth. It's interesting to hear how you've all been on these journeys, even if you've had to take breaks or haven't been able to explore art all the time. It seems to always been pretty present in your lives. And I'm very curious as to hear what you have to say about the body of work that we're going to check out right now. We have a really quick tour of the exhibition, give you a little bit of a taste of what to expect. So we're going to have a look at that right now. Excellent. So when you come into the Meek off sort of the main entrance here on the Grosvenor Theatre, this is what you see on that floor. And so the show starts off with some of Michelle's pretty striking paintings on wood. And then we get into some of Elizabeth's really interesting sort of photo montage work. And then we get a couple of pieces of Kurt's wonderful paintings. And the great thing about the Meek is they have two theaters, so you get to go downstairs to the McEwen Theater, and we have even more artwork for you to experience. And we have some of Michelle's work. You'll be able to, I think, figure out whose work is whose. Everyone has a pretty distinct voice. Yeah, I've had a little bit of feedback from visitors, and so far people are pretty intrigued. You have now some of Kurt's work again. Well, I'm sure we'll get into it later, but it's a show that has a lot of interpretations. So from what I've heard from a few visitors and even the staff at the Meek is everyone has a completely different idea about what the pieces are and what they mean. And then we get to have, yeah, again, some more of Elizabeth's work. And you really have to go in and see everything in person. This just quick little tour is really, yeah, just a quick sample. There is so much to see so many really interesting details and tones and colors and textures, and really spending time with each piece and trying to absorb it and figure out what the story is for you. I really recommend you can go and spend a whole day there. You can go to the Meek to see this exhibit. Uh, Tuesday through Friday between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. And then anytime the Meek has a play or a concert or a film screening, you can go before then. They open the doors about an hour before, so you can go hang out and check out the really cool artwork. So now that we've had a little taste for that, we're going to pull up a piece of work from each artist, and they're going to talk a little bit more about it, maybe what inspired them, maybe how they made it, what it says about their overall practice. Who knows what they're going to say? So let's pull up, since we ended on Elizabeth last time, I'm going to pull up your piece right now. Forgive me, it's just taking a little bit for this this to load. Sorry, folks. Yeah. All right, Elizabeth, could you please tell us about this fantastic work?
Absolutely. So, my artistic practice is rooted in what is called digital photomontage, essentially collage constructed digitally from photographs. I work primarily with portraiture, beginning with the concept of persona. The version, as in the version of ourselves, which we present to the world. Through a process of layering, typically I use Photoshop. I explore what may exist beneath that surface presentation, suggesting interior states that are complex, fluid, and emotionally charged. In this piece, titled Portrait of the Artist with Flowers, I began by digitally extracting my own silhouette from a photograph. This form was then filled with flowers taken from a photograph of a floral painting, creating what I hoped would be an internal layer contrasting softness with the notion of containment in the figure. The photograph, the background, is tree bark, which I manipulated heavily, creating a kind of structure and organic background that will hold these various layers. On top of the figure is a photograph of torn, very old lace. And this is what creates those wonderful holes and windows you can see through to the background with. And then lastly, back to tree bark, I took multiple photographs of various tree bark and created quite a complex abstract, which I applied to the surface of this image in a transparent model, which lends a type of depth and richness of color to the overall piece. Each of these layers are carefully manipulated, as I said. Their color, texture, and vibrancy are orchestrated by me, while ensuring that the persona remains legible. That's very important to me in these portraits. Until finally, it comes to a conclusion for me when the figure emerges as a closed vessel, held in attention, surrounded by harmony, and eruptive patterns that register unrest or disquiet. Those dual states, harmony, disquiet, are reoccurring preoccupations within my artwork. And I think you'll pick that up pretty quickly when you see the various pieces that are on exhibition in this group show. Thank you, Stephen.
Oh, excellent. Thank you so much for sharing, Elizabeth. And like this piece, like the rest of what we're going to see later, there's a lot to dig into. first I'll just get to on the technical uh, side. Um, with your background in software, has this sort of photo montage, has you always worked digitally, or have you worked with like, like physical like photographs that you've developed, or done collage work sort of in a more, yeah, more tangible way?
I think certainly in the part-time courses I took way back at Emily Carr College of Art and then subsequently Simon Fraser Visual Arts program, I often worked in installation and not collage by any means. So collage, this type of photo montage came to me more through, I think, my background in technology, in software technology, which it just seemed a natural fit because I wasn't afraid of technology. Having an entire career in it from the get-go, I just felt I could slam it around. and for artistic expression, that's very helpful without the labor that someone like Kurt would go through in actually painting and maybe having to change it laboriously. It's quite different with digital collage. So no, I think my earlier works were much more installation oriented, and then I had my work and came back to it by, I guess, amalgamating the two approaches. Some of these photo montages have become installations, not the particular ones on show, but other work was part of an installation in Nagoya University over a year ago. And it was really quite fun to make these gigantic pieces that people could kind of walk into like an installation piece. But I also like the size and format of what you'll see at the Meek. I find that very intimate. It does demand of the viewer that they stand and look. I accuse myself of not always doing that, but I did with this show, and I hope that viewers will do it with my work as well.
No, that intimacy is interesting. Like for the size, like you said, they're fairly small pieces, so you do have to sort of walk up to them if you really want to experience all of these different layers and textures and colors and figure out what's happening. And that forced intimacy really relates to your work, because it seems you're trying to explore all those different layers and surfaces that we have beneath us, right? So
That's
almost
correct.
kind of like trying to reach for that intimacy while sort of forcing the viewer into that space.
That's correct. Stephen, in fact, recently I'm starting to think of going even smaller in the arena of the miniature. Uh, I think it came about through visiting my childhood school in Calgary, Alberta, and seeing the icons, which are very tiny and brilliantly colored with a lot of gold leaf, that inspired me to think, whoa, there's something about that intimacy I want to keep on exploring. On the other hand, I really like installation work, so I'm having a good journey, to say the least.
Yeah, definitely. Wonderful. Excellent. Well, thank you so much for sharing about that very, very lovely work. There's a real sort of delicacy, but also, with all those barks and even the lace, there's a harshness. So there's a real, as you're talking about this harmony and disquiet, there's a lovely tension in your pieces. Next up, we have a very interesting painting from Michelle. Michelle, could you please tell us about this work?
Yes. This painting is called Puppet Academy, and it actually was a painting that was inspired by Yuval Noah's book Nexus, which blew me away. It was a heady read, but it was eye-opening to the history of human kind and how we as humans have gone through history with information networks. And he, towards the latter part of the book, really does a deep dive into AI and the algorithms that we live in this world. and the dangers of that's ahead of us in this revolutionary changes that are happening at warp speed, and the threat to democracy and the threat to our independence and increased surveillance. But mostly what the painting was about was just this concept of us all being puppets and not really in control of the feeds that we're getting in our digital world, where we are addicted to all of our devices and our social networks, as opposed to the real world where there's a lot more serendipitous interactions. And we are, as a result of that, becoming much more siloed. And when you get siloed and validated with your own belief system, then you are more apt to be more divisive, and it starts to become toxic and it feeds on itself. And so we're in such a weird state in this world right now. And I my style that I'm using right now kind of goes back to my cartooning background. When I was in university and I was studying sculpture and painting and figurative drawing, I also was a cartoonist. I had two different cartoon strips, one at the University of Alberta, one at Concordia University. And after I graduated, I also did editorial cartoons for small community newspapers. But I really love cartoons because they are a great way to reach people, and also a vehicle to discuss or address political or sensitive or risky topics that in the realism quote unquote world you can't really necessarily approach. But cartoons kind of, they're more forgiving. And I don't know where I'm going with this. Again, I'm not too sure if I want to be in this box for very long, but I'm having fun on the journey. And I'm doing some deeper dives, also starting to integrate some color in it. But in the meantime, Puppet Academy is sort of a parody to all of us and our complete naivete to the algorithms of the world that are feeding us information. And that's it.
Thank you so much for sharing, Michelle. Yeah, very, very timely. A lot of us, I'm sure, are thinking and asking a lot of the same questions that you and your artwork are. Um, I wanted to get into a little bit about the style and sort of the themes you're exploring because, as you mentioned, we can become ever so increasingly siloed, by the information and technology and how maybe we're not using it properly, and how in this piece, it's sort of as you're stating, we can kind of be controlled by it. But in your paintings, you have these wonderful connections between these shapes and figures and connection and sort of expressive things like, and for this piece there's all these eyes, and some of the other pieces there's these almost tree-like networks. I'm wondering if there's anything to say about that, about how everything seems to be connected, even though you're sort of exploring themes of isolation to a degree. Oh, sorry, Michelle. I don't know if you're speaking, but I think you're muted.
Oh my God, I've been talking all this time. I apologize. Sorry about that. Yes, oh wow, where did I start? What did I say? Uh, Basically, the paintings all have an underlying theme of connectivity, and that's the irony the of the theme, so to speak. I'm talking about connectivity through both surveillance and connectivity in the digital space with each other. We live in a world right now where we are more connected than ever before, and yet people are more lonely because of the siloed effect, because of the algorithms that are pushing us away from community building in the digital space, and at home doom scrolling instead of out in the community and doing things and engaging in the real world. And I play around with things like you talked about the roots. That's the painting called Mycelium, with the eyes coming out of the ground and the root system underneath, the invisible network of roots that's again emphasizing this level of connectivity, and the eyes reoccurring again of surveillance. So it's not so much eyes like connecting with each other in a positive way. It's that we have eyes upon us, where you shop, how you shop in a digital space, what you buy, who you connect with, what you say. Everything is being monitored, and we don't really see it and aren't really truly aware of it, but we are being monitored and watched in everything we do in that digital space. So that's why there's eyes and connectivity. It's the darker side of the story told through more whimsical paintings.
Yeah, it perfectly makes sense. And it is, something to think about, because what is being thought of and what is being used by this surveillance, right? And what is it that we have to present, knowing that we have, all of these eyes on us. How do we present ourselves? How do we interact with the world? Is that how we would naturally act or not?
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty interesting questions. Um, and in cartooning, because even though you're dealing with some really deep and thoughtful topics, there is this sense of whimsy and a sense of play in your work. If one wanted to look at it, it could just be these really great fun pieces, that you can just have a laugh at. But if you wanted to, you could really dig deep.
That's exactly it. I felt like it's more accessible to a wider audience if we keep the whimsical, it, appealing in that regard first, and then you peel back the layers of the onion as you stare at the painting and start asking, what does this really mean? Why is it like this? And then it's more of a conversation piece, and it's about catalyst opening the conversation and awareness.
Yeah, definitely. And the one last thing, I'm just curious as to why the simple color. It's just the black on wood. You have yeah, as you said, there's a couple little color working into some of the pieces, but for the most part, everything's pretty stark like this.
Yes, I saw a painting. We used to spend our winters in Palm Springs, and at one of the mid-century modern homes I saw during Mid-Century Modern Week had a beautiful painting of black on wood, and I didn't know who the artist was, and I couldn't for the life of me find who it was, but it was something from the 1970s, and it really stood out. And I loved the starkness of it, and I loved showing the natural grain of the wood and letting it just be a part of the painting as opposed to covering it all up. I also really like artists like Banksy, who and Picasso, Picasso with his eyes, but Banksy, who in simplicity of just taking stencils, clean black stencils, and superimposing them in different environments. This uh, clean lines, again, like sort of looping back to the cartooning side of things, is that I just wanted to strip away all the noise, just distill it down to just almost like an imprint or a graphic design, something that is so simple yet could have a deeper meaning. But that being said, I'm now starting to explore with a little bit of color and play around with some different landscapes. So the next chapter of what's coming out of me in 2026 could be completely different or a hybrid of the two styles coming together at some point. But for now, I think for me, just to baby steps coming back into the art world, I really wanted to strip it all down and distill it to clean lines and be really focused and less is more approach. Are you there?
Stephen, I think you're on mute now.
Yes, thank you. Sorry, everyone. But yes, thank you for sharing, Michelle. And next up, Kurt, could you please tell us about this piece?
Okay, Stephen, this piece is called Weekend Warrior, and it's making a statement about being a mountain biker, and it's trying to show speed, power, uh, going through the loam, and yet it is very risky. Uh, Life and limb is uh, in their hands a lot of times going down the trails, and I've I've been in a few situations myself riding mountain bikes that I know it's a very risky business, and you have to be really focused. So I'm trying to show speed, dominance, and yet nature at the same time, and that a mountain biker still needs uh, a line or a trail to get down to the bottom, sort of like skiing. And gravity's doing a lot of the work, but you have to find the right line and hope you don't hit anything on the way down. Uh, I've been fortunate that I live up near the forest, so I've been on the trails many times in the last 25 years, and I've seen a lot of changes, and uh, some for the good, some for the bad, but uh, I know that it is a very risky business, mountain biking, and is not to be taken lightly. You have to be focused going down those trails. Uh, yeah, I'm just making a statement. Weekend warrior, right? I
Thank you.
think that's about it.
Excellent. Thanks for sharing, Kurt. There are such interesting narratives happening in all of your works. And for instance, this one, this idea of this a mountain biker and having to follow a path and the sort of almost that identity. Like you look at this and you think, okay, I think I know what that is. I think I know it's someone on a bike driving through the hills, and it instantly you kind of know who that person is, right? You know that person who's going to take those risks, who's going to, you know, enjoy that sort of lifestyle. So I'm curious with your work because in some of your pieces that are on display that maybe aren't so straightforward as this work. Um, how do you find that balance in what you're trying to say versus maybe how you're just what you're just expressing in general?
Uh, Sometimes I think my labels or titles to the paintings are right on, and Weekend Warrior is to me more than appropriate because uh, you are a bit of a warrior. You're taking a risk. You're putting your life in your own hands, in your own abilities, your your own confidence to do what you have to do to get from the top to the bottom, right? And it's it's either you kind of hold back or you go for it. It's similar to skiing. You take the nice line, and if you go for it, it's great. But there is a risk, more of a risk in mountain biking because you don't have any snow to fall into, and there's a lot of obstacles. And I can say for myself that I've been lucky a few times, but there's I have a lot of stories about friends and other people, family, where it hasn't been that nice, right?
Yeah, I would love to hear a little bit more about. You mentioned just in your brief intro about sort of this automatic way in which you work sometimes. For maybe those of us who maybe aren't familiar, could you explain that a little bit more for people watching, what that means and how you go about working in that way?
Well, I did not plan this image. It more or less morphed out of my automatic sketching on the sketchbooks, and I just pulled it out of the scribbles, and I saw that I was having a pretty dominant form here of a biker, and so I decided to carry it a little further and make a statement. And so that's how I put the background in, and then the path, and then little drops of blood under the wheel. Uh, so I'm that's how I brought it all together to make a statement. And then the title came in, and I'm going, that's it, Weekend Warrior. It fits, and that's how I came about naming that painting.
Yeah. Such an interesting process that the automatic sketches that you get, and then how you blend sort of what you see emerging, and then maybe adding different elements. Uh, yeah, it just makes for an interesting sort of experiment when people sort of try and look at a piece, knowing, okay, well, what started with those sketches? What did the artist add later? What does the merging of that subconscious and conscious mind say, and how do I interpret that? It's pretty. It's a great
Well,
experience for viewers. Yeah.
yeah. Uh, yeah, that's hard to explain, but that's part of being a surrealist, dealing with automatism. And sometimes you just unfocus, and you let the lines on the drawing take you into the direction that they want to take you. And you just clean up the lines, you start taking away and adding, and then images start arriving.
Yeah. Really wonderful. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing, Kurt. And again, Elizabeth and uh, Michelle, thanks for the insights on the pieces that you brought up as well. Um, Sort of coming a little bit to the close of our conversation, um, but I was just curious. Something I'll put out to all three of you. Um, these are at once very seemingly personal works, but also um, you all clearly have something to say. And with the title persona, um, what is it you think? Uh, what is it that you think uh, the persona that you're presenting through your work to the public? Is that even something you consider? How would people interpret who I am through my work? Or are you thinking more just about what you're trying to say? I'd be curious if that factors in at all into your creative process. If anyone has any thoughts or an answer to that.
I guess I could speak.
Yeah, go ahead.
Um, I actually didn't know that was the title till I got the contract, and then I had paused, and then I looked at Elizabeth's and Kurt's work, and then I'm like, oh, it's so neat that all three of us can still address a perception or persona of ourselves and the world around us in such different voices and different styles. And I think that's really what it is. It's such a vague and versatile word because it could be the persona of myself, putting myself into my art and the hidden me that's in each painting. Or it could also be the persona, the character, or the theme, or the people that I'm depicting in the outside world. So it's a nice art show title. I really like it, but at first it blindsided me, but it took a moment. I paused and really thought about it and really liked it after that.
I'd like to say something about that. Your question, Stephen. I think for me, persona was a natural. The theme of the exhibition, persona, was a natural for me in terms of the work I do, and as I described, starting with the persona, what an individual puts forward in the world. So it felt quite natural to me. I love though seeing the different approaches Kurt, Michelle, myself have taken to that definition of persona, the representation of it. I try not to think very much about how people perceive my persona through the work I do. I think I like to hide behind it most of the time. it's and also I think it's a bit nerve-wracking. I think that's why I started late as an artist. I think it takes some kind of courage to put yourself out there, express yourself as an artist out there in the world. It takes self-confidence, and then as Michelle said, that the whole art gallery dealing, the whole realm of art generally can be a force to contend with that you might not always want to do. So I just want to say one thing about the titles. I love the titles. The Puppet Theater I found very appealing as a title, and Kurt, Weekend Warrior. There, do both of you spend a lot of time on your titles? I ask that question because I actually do spend a lot of time on my titles. Nothing is ready to go into the world until I found the right title.
I'll let Kurt go first, then I can add to that.
Uh, Elizabeth, I usually don't work on the titles that much because after the painting's finished, it the title comes after the painting is finished. And yeah, when I get the right title, I usually know it's the right title for the painting. And it seems to fit and it's not like I started out to paint Weekend Warrior, but the painting kind of morphed its way to the Weekend Warrior, and the title ended up coming last. And most of my paintings, the title does come last. It's so the persona is probably the automatism and where this painting is going, and then at the very last of looking for a title, a light bulb goes on in your head and you go, right, that's the right title for this painting. Key to My Heart. I could see how it all looks and fits into place. And so maybe I'm working backwards doing it that way, but it seems to work. Thanks.
Yeah, I work backwards sometimes, but mostly I'm working forwards. I start because I'm doing crisp lines on wood. that There's not a lot of room for improvisation and correction. So I start with sketches, and then I do little ink drawings, and then I get something either perfectly designed and I'm ready to replicate it and enlarge it, or it's 80% there and then I enlarge it. And as I do, I modify ever so slightly. But I've usually come with the title by the time I'm painting it on the wood. Uh, Probably 80% of the time I already know what I'm doing. My left brain starts off very strong, and then my right brain is the whimsical, cartoony, drawing, sketching side, and then I finish back in my left brain with the precise line. So it's a journey for me, and it's great because I get to work in both different styles and be free on one side and be very structured in the other. And I'm really knowing, I know that I ultimately need to move away and move into more of a fluid and looser style and get more in touch with that when I get to the final stage. But right now, I'm really enjoying the precision of it all and the control of it all, and having the control at the very beginning with my titles. And Puppet Academy was an example of that. I went into that painting with the title in advance.
Interesting answers and a great question, Elizabeth. Well, everyone, I think that about wraps up our conversation. Please go check out Persona at the Meek Arts Center. It is on until February 22nd. It's a really stunning, thought-provoking, fun, diverse exhibition. And thank you so much to our artists, Kurt Connell, Elizabeth Wood, and Michelle Neilson, for sharing your artwork and sharing with us today. It was really great to hear all that you had to say. Really appreciate it.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you, Stephen.
Awesome. And yeah, so the show's up until February 22nd. Go check it out. And until next time we have another artist talk, hope you all stay creative. Thanks so much. Bye.